Okay, guys, it looks like it's a time to kick it off. Welcome to the panel. Welcome the audience. It's really strange to speak in Poland in English, but let's do it. We have a nice guest here. So we are a builders panel today. We will be speaking about the cloud and solutions applications. And I know we have a nice screen here, but if you can just please introduce yourself quickly.
Howdy, I'm Jeffrey Snover. I'm a technical fellow, and I'm the chief architect for Azure Storage and the Cloud Edge, but I knew nothing about storage. It's a recent reorgs.
Hello, my name is Allison Gruninger, and I'm a software engineer on Azure App Service and Azure Functions.
Hello, my name is Michał. I'm working at the Polish Microsoft office. I'm working with the cloud and Polish customers.
Hey everyone, I'm Alex. Seems like I'm the only one outside Microsoft in Azure MVP. Oh, you're not as well. Okay, that's good to know. That's reassuring. Yeah, we block you guys. I do software development, have been doing Azure for the past 8 years. Most likely can answer or try to answer any questions you guys have. Looking forward to them.
Okay, so I'm Tomasz Onyszko. I'm CTO of Predica here, and I'm asking questions, and they answer this. And there's a ask, if you have any question, just feel free to pop up and ask them. If you don't feel comfortable in English, ask it in Polish. I do Bing translation very well. So let's kick it off. Well, I have my cheat sheet here. Question maybe to Jeffrey. Let's start it. If you will be starting a new application project right now, would you use the cloud and why? And would it be Azure or maybe something else?
Yes, I would use the cloud. Why? Because I'm not stupid.
Explain stupid, please.
Well, the whole point about the cloud is that it allows you to scale up very, very quickly. So basically the question you have to ask is, do I expect to fail or do I expect to succeed? If you expect to fail, like why even do it? But if you expect to succeed, that means you're going to succeed. And you need to be able to grow. And what if you succeed in other countries and you want to be able to grow as rapidly as you can? And the cloud allows you to do that without having to sign up data, stand up servers, etc. The other thing is that with the modern architectures like functions, you can focus more of your people and more of your energy talking to customers and delivering that, and less of your energy like messing around with infrastructure. Like, why would you do that? Every time you patch a server, you're not really bringing value to your customers. If you don't patch the server, you're screwing your customers and you're going to pay that price, but you're not bringing any value. Modern architectures do that for you, so you can focus in on the business value.
I'm happy you brought the business value point, because actually, are you in the business of running the server? That's the question you want to ask yourself as a business owner, yeah?
Exactly.
But I don't know if you are aware.
By the way, there are people who are in the business of running server. Azure, AWS, and Google. If you're not one of those three, you probably shouldn't be, you're not advancing your business by running Windows Server or Linux Server very well.
We still have a couple of others, like Oracle, IBM. You're aware of that?
Who?
Okay. But I don't know if you're aware, but you're in a country which has one of the lowest cloud adoption in Europe. We have like 6% of enterprises using it. So Michał, maybe you will pop up and say us, why do you think companies in Poland should use it?
Today I had a session, 10 reasons how to convince your boss to move to the cloud. And I will tell you, even though the 6% is not a high, if we will be talking like 3 years ago, it was like 0%. So even though we have a, let's say, late start, we are still growing, and we are growing pretty fast. I know the numbers, I cannot share them with you, but we can tell. But the thing which you're asking, why we should invest in the cloud. Everyone in Poland right now is talking about this transformation stuff. We want to do more engaging things. We want to analyze our customers' behavior. We want to personalize the offer. We want to treat them in a better way for personalizing the UI in the bank. Today is a session on the Polish Bank Association when they are talking only about that, how to start a new bank in the cloud. Then you have the answer. I mean, all the business people understand that if you would like to invent, you have to move your people from managing the thing to developing the thing, and that's the big reason for that.
Okay. So I have another one, and maybe Alex or Allison will take that. It's machine versus services. So a lot of this crowd here is very used to run the servers and run infrastructure. And right now you have a 1 minute to convince them to go to the platform as a service instead of deploying the next application as an infrastructure.
Is this one of these elevator pitches where I have
No,
to
that's-
sell you something and
Keep it technical.
just like that?
And what would be the reason if you have an application running on a service right now, and you can move it as a lift and shift to the cloud, but you can also rewrite it. And why rewrite it? Why take this cost?
I think there is a third approach actually. So you can do lift and shift, and awesome, that works. But you need global presence, you need high availability, you need this and that. Then lift and shift is probably not enough. It's one scenario, you can take it that way, but there are other scenarios. One being rewrite everything. But rewriting everything usually doesn't happen within a month or a couple of months or even a year. So there would be the option of taking a more smarter, I would say, approach where you Dockerize your monolith. Let's call it the traditional application because monolith somehow sounds like a bad word. You Dockerize your application, and rather than using one of these fancy orchestrators like Kubernetes, you can use a service fabric orchestrator. Then you have a monolith over there, and any new features which you add are designed as a native application. And at some point, you can start breaking apart the application. And now you don't have any downtime. You don't have to reinvest all the time you have spent developing your application when it was designed to run on the server. And think about it, like 5 years ago, especially here in Eastern Europe, we not only knew the configuration of the server, we exactly knew the product number. You knew it was an IBM X3650M2, whatever.
Yeah, something.
Right? Software developers were responsible of deploying the application in such manner that the server was sitting on their desk. And the problem we have with adoption probably, and 6% being a high or low number, I don't know, is that people, especially here in Eastern Europe, they would trust their workstation underneath their desk more than they would trust the American corporation, because American corporation. But honestly, we have to get over that at some point. And it's widely accepted that by 2025, I think, 60% of the overall computing happens in the cloud. I think that's just a reassurance of the fact that people started embracing and accepting this traditional transformation, modern workload, application modernization, whatever you want to call it. And serverless, in my opinion, is just an enabler for that.
Oh, there's one point. Okay.
Yeah.
One point which I had on my deck as well. The first thing is education. I think still we know not much about the cloud, all the possibilities you named. And even though I'm meeting with many companies for many years right now, it's still a lack of the knowledge. So that's why we don't develop and deploy.
Think of it this way. How many of you grow your own wheat, grind it to make flour, and bake your own bread, right? I don't, but I eat bread, right? And because I don't do that, I let somebody else do that for me, I get to be a technical fellow. And guess what? I make a whole lot more money than the folks growing wheat and grinding, and I like it more. Well, it's exactly the same thing. At some point, everybody used to grow their own wheat, do that. And then we figured out a way to say, let's let these people do that for us, and we're going to do something more value add. It's exactly the same.
I don't know if you know it, but like baking your own bread is a thing here. People are doing it. So, well, no, they are not growing the wheat. Alex, I want to add one point to what Michał said, because you've mentioned service fabric, and what I heard last weekend during the global bootcamp was that actually nobody knows how to write applications in the service fabric. And that's the question why, basically, where the problem is. It's a lack of resources or lack of attitude, I don't know. Do you know many companies working on it, actually?
I honestly believe there are two problems here. Number one is education, just like you said. Tell people that Service Fabric and implementing Service Fabric native applications, reliable services isn't that deep of a learning curve. It's only another extra class you have to think about, and that's it. Second, one thing I've seen people being afraid of Service Fabric cluster in Azure, running in Azure, is that you have to tell them that out of the box, the recommendation is that you run your app on a 5-node cluster, which kind of is overkill if you think about most of the applications. So my expectations is that at some point, we will have our applications run in a serverless manner somehow, that you just push something and they run, I don't know, right? But I would see a perfect world somewhere where serverless apps can be anything. Not only applications which specifically target Azure functions, app services, and whatnot. And if that would ever happen, I would super love that, right?
Okay, and this is Actually, this is bringing us to another topic, and I will let Allison start on it because you've mentioned containers and Kubernetes, and you've mentioned serverless. And the question is, where do you think it is going between the Kubernetes and containers and serverless approach? Looking 5 years from now, what do you think will be prevalent infrastructure or in architecture? Will we all run containerized applications, or will we go to some different model?
Well, I am obviously biased, but I will explain.
That's why we'll have a second opinion as well.
Explain my opinion. I mean, I think the future is serverless. The ability to just kind of, as you were saying, Jeff, just abstract away all of the problems of managing your servers, worrying about your OS, patching your updates, that takes away from time that you can use to spend business logic. And so I think why I would say that serverless is the future is less of a blocker to just start writing your code, start putting out an application, be able to get feedback quickly and adapt. I think that's one of the great benefits of serverless. Besides, it's super cheap. You're only paying for when your code is running, and it scales automatically. And so that would be my points for serverless for sure.
It's worth pointing out that with containers, you still have to patch your containers, right? You are still responsible for the OS. If that thing's out of date, you got serverless functions.
But actually, the good question, and maybe Jeffrey, you can, I will pull you on this one, is what it means serverless. Because right now, everybody, when you say serverless, everybody are just thinking functions. But I have my personal opinion. There's probably a bit more to that. But actually, what it means that we will run serverless 5 years from now.
I have opinions, but we have an expert.
So serverless is just the abstraction of servers, right? So if all of our applications can one day become serverless, as you were mentioning, then I mean, I guess it's just more work for me that I'm the one who's worrying more about your updates, how I'm managing, how I'm scaling out your application and making sure that I'm charging you the least amount possible and executing your code when it's run perfectly. I mean, so we have serverless products besides functions right now. We have Event Grid, we have Logic Apps, Event Hub, and I think Event Grid and Event Hub are good examples because they can show how you can make applications that you wouldn't necessarily think are serverless into more, kind of extend them into this serverless mindset. So if you want to use events that come from less traditional serverless products, like an app service you might not think of, Azure Compute, databases that can trigger your Event Hub, your Event Grids, and then that will trigger another serverless products such as functions or logic apps. These are ways to kind of extend into this serverless infrastructure, and then hopefully eventually we're just kind of, you're not even worried about what operating system, how many servers, where it's just all abstracted away to the point that you don't care and you can just focus on your business logic.
Alex wants to add something. I saw this hand just picking
Yeah,
up.
thank you for that. So whoever didn't attend my theater session earlier today, just before your presentation, your breakout presentation, I actually gave a demo where I was showing people how fast Azure Functions can scale. And at some point, I even showed them one of our production applications scaling up to 59 servers. Now imagine buying or running a cluster of 59 servers in an IaaS infrastructure or on premises. It's just crazy, mind-blowing. And we only needed those for our production application for like 2 minutes or so. After that, we no longer pay for those machines. There's this expert, maybe he knows who that is, who has a saying, basically sounds like, you should never treat your servers like cattle. You should, like pets, you should treat them like cattle. Which basically is another way of saying, if you ever put a name on a server, and if you ever cross your fingers when you patch your server, then you're not doing a good job in IT. And serverless is here actually to take that away from you.
One of the benefits of having an old guy on the panel is I can provide his historical perspective here.
That was about me.
Everything old is new again. Everything new was once old. When we talk about serverless, really, it's not, anybody remember transaction monitors? It's not that different than a transaction monitor. What a transaction monitor said was, instead of you writing arbitrary code, I'm going to force a discipline on you. You can only do these things and you can only do these things. But in exchange, I will take your code and I will put it into an environment and I will run it. and I will run it in small, I will run it in large, I will distribute it, etc. So serverless is really just the next iteration, or it's really the rebirth of the transaction monitor. Now, the transaction monitor was very focused in on business applications. Serverless is much broader than that. But the heart of it is the same. Instead of you giving me an executable or a VM, you give me code, like source code, and I give you a set of requirements, and then I'll take your code and I will run it. And that's where all the power comes from. Transaction processors, transaction monitors were incredibly powerful. Serverless is incredibly powerful.
I have always had my own opinion, and people knows it, because I think, and I want to ask you if you agree with that actually the power behind that is a different business model where you can attach a cost to the specific function of the business which is being executed on a platform, and you can actually say, okay, this path of a business is generating that amount of money for us, and we may want to optimize that by replacing this with other component, and this component might be a serverless patch of code which we are just purchasing to do the specific function, if I want to run a navigation on my application, do the location of the people who are accessing my application, instead of writing this code, I can just rent a module. And if this module costs me $1 per month, and somebody will build one which costs 70 cents per month, so I can just replace that. That's, I think, is the premise of the serverless model.
Yep. Sounds great.
I like to be right.
I like that, but I think there's the other thing that I think is, I always think of as first is that you look, our most precious resources are people and their attention and their time. And serverless allows your people to spend more of their attention and time on satisfying business customers as opposed to all the rest of that crap.
Yeah, I think so. We are playing a bit a game of buzzwords, but let's take your take on DevOps. I mean, what do you think, if you can explain, there is a different approaches what DevOps actually means and what DevOps means for you. Guys?
By all means, I don't think it's a role or a particular individual. I rather like to think of it as the entire process which happens, so that the company altogether, everyone engaged, from stakeholders, from managers, from whatever, embraces the full ALM methodology of an application lifecycle management, where everybody understands that quality quote is not only about the way you code your application or your serverless functions or whatnot, it's also about quality testing, it's also about quality product backlog item management and things like that. And finally, about maintaining your infrastructures and your application architecture whilst it's in production, so that you know proactively when something is about to go wrong, and you know how to take the right measures, and you know how to take feedback from your customers. That's what I think about it.
I will look at it from the different point of view, let's say. So from my perspective, when I look at how the product groups right now are working at Microsoft, this just shows how the DevOps you can benefit from DevOps. No matter is it a process, technology, or the way you do the software. So many years ago, we had developers, we have engineers, we have support. Right now, we have people responsible for that product, responsible for the business value, for the product to work, for the product to support it, to find, the future features. When I'm talking with the product groups right now, they see the full stack, from the business value up to the support. This is the biggest change, because right now they are thinking about the end customer, and they are thinking about the quality of the product. That's changed everything, from my perspective.
From my perspective, okay, yes. DevOps are important to me because I like customers being able to debug their own issues, as opposed to me getting woken up at 2 a.m. to debug issues.
That's an interesting approach.
But seriously, Microsoft has so many ways for you to monitor your application, for you to see what's going on right now, what's going on the past week, for you to figure out problems on your own, and that's really empowering that you can focus on how your application is running and just kind of have I would say it's very clear. We're not trying to hide anything, and that's, I think, something that's really cool.
Yeah, I think DevOps is one of the most important movements the industry has seen, and you should all become good at it. If you haven't looked into it, your first starting point should be Gene Kim's book called The Phoenix Project. That's sort of the foundation of this line of thinking. Now then, as you engage in DevOps, there's lots of conversations about what it is and it isn't. To me, it's really, the heart of it is two things. Number one, do work in small batches very frequently so that you can learn quickly. And number two, stop being a jerk to your coworkers. That's the heart of DevOps, and I'm serious about that. That developers and operators stop being jerks to one another, stop blaming one another. If they're screwing up, go across the aisle and help them. You are jointly responsible for delivering business success. So that's, in my view, the heart of it.
You can keep a mic. Because you touched one point that if you don't know it yet, so you have to start to learn it. And I was doing a sessions over 2 last weekends on some conferences. And to my surprise, when I asked guys like, how many of you have actually worked with a technology like Azure, and how many of you knows that things like that, DevOps, that was like on 100 people, like 4 hands up. So I think that there is a lot of learning curve here. And if you will have to give advice to the crowd here, like, what is the one skill, be it technical or being business or being the soft skill, which they have to start to master to become a successful developers and infrastructure people on the cloud? And you are not allowed to say PowerShell.
The second most important
Yes.
thing is really to manage your time. No one is going to give you, or very few people get permission to go invent the future. Very few people get the permission to go explore new technology. You have to figure out a way to do it, to manage your time, to free up the time. That's where you use PowerShell, so you can automate, so you free up time. But you got to create the time, and then you've got to invest. If you don't invest, you're going to be like those AS400 command line administrators. Look, I'm so busy administering my AS400, I don't have time to learn this, what's this TCP/IP thing? What's this Windows thing? What's this Linux thing? I'm very, very busy, don't you understand? It's very important. And you will get stuck. It might be a nice stuck. You don't have to worry about learning. You get to spend a lot of time with your friends and family, but you're gonna get stuck. You have to create bandwidth and then invest that bandwidth in learning to advance your career.
I would just add on to that the ability to listen and be able to change rapidly, quickly. So understand trends, listen, and be able to react to those, I think, is important.
So I don't want to repeat everything what has been said, apart from PowerShell, of course, right? Maybe Bash, Linux Bash as well. Anyway, I would say a different thing. So if you want to learn and you don't know where to start, there are plenty of people around who can help you. And time management is yours. I mean, choosing the technology is yours, but someone who can help you start, well, you will find lots of friends who will tell you how to start. I was mentioning during the session a guy we've met at Poznań. I was doing the free workshop. Right now, he's doing by on his own, and right now he's delivering the session internally in the company on his own. He's exploring the technology and showing the technology inside the company. So it's the difficult thing is to start. Then you will find out your way somehow.
Alex?
I couldn't agree more. I don't know. It's like they call us Azure MVPs, and Azure is such a broad word, right? Are we expected to know IaaS and PIs and serverless and patterns and practices and how to run a cloud service from 2010 and how to do cognitive services and how to run bots? Hopefully not. There's a lot of things, right? But if you do time management and if you focus on what you're actually interested in, then you're in a good place, I would say, and you're on a good track.
Hey guys, we have like 5 minutes left here, and I can tell you that this is the one and only opportunity to pick up the brains of those people. I'm in this industry like 20 years, and I've met Jeffrey before only once. So if anyone has a question, there is a mic. I have a question prepared, but it might be in Polish. I will do big thing. There is a question.
I have a question for Michał. You mentioned that you just have to start in order to practice the knowledge. What would be the advice of you, also the other participants in this panel? Where is the best place to start with gaining knowledge and acquiring knowledge? How would you go the way newbie?
Well, this is a tricky question. Why? Because there is a plural side. There is Microsoft Virtual Academy. There are lots of workshops around, lots of groups. But if you ask me, I will start with the documentation. I'm sorry. I will pick a couple of services which I would like to build the final solution, and I will start digging, you know. And then the only thing which I will do for myself is to set up the goal. So for example, if the goal for me is build a full CI/CD pipeline with Kubernetes at the end, that's my goal. How will I get there? I will try to learn different services and I will finally get there, right? What you learn around, that's your choice. But I would say there are too much of materials you can, actually it's too much. So if you would like to pick a couple of those, we can help you with.
Yeah, just to add on to that, have this mentality where I need to know everything and I need to learn everything, and it can be so overwhelming. So I think just picking out a few things, like I'm going to accomplish A and A will let me accomplish B, and that's going to be good enough for today. Then you feel like you've accomplished something instead of just reading into a abyss of what do I actually know now? There's so much going on. So I think being very specific about what you want to learn is a great point.
Just one observation. Microsoft invests about, $15 billion a year in research and development. I can't keep up with it all, and it's my job.
Anyone else?
Did it help you? The question to you is, did it help you? Okay.
I think what I can add to it is that in Polish community there is a lot of events happening, and there are some free workshops where we are trying to teach people, and also there are some trainings.
Please don't attend everyone, because you will be like me, you know, growing 10 centimeters every half a year, right? Because of pizza.
No pizza on events. Anyone else? Here.
Okay. I have heard a lot of politics and strategies on how to move companies and the infrastructure of a company to cloud.
Can you speak closer?
Yeah. But what about governments? Is there a strategy of convincing them to move to cloud? And can we expect this in the near future? Because as we know, a lot of companies have their business model concentrated on working in solutions for governments. Does that mean that they should change their business model? Or can we expect governments to move to cloud in the near future?
So from the Polish perspective, Jeffrey can share the US perspective. Actually, the government or the companies who can be perceived as a government companies are already there. So some of the public companies, I cannot share the names, those are one of the most, of the best customers. They spend the most of the money there, really, as it's for us. You probably heard about the Ministry of Finance, jednolity plik kontrolny. Probably lots of Polish people have heard about that. It's already in cloud for 2 years, right? But there are lots of other projects which are happening right now. I cannot share all the details, unfortunately, but one thing is very important. The Polish Ministry of Digitalization, sorry for that, published an article a couple of months ago showing how Polish government can use Office 365 and Azure and obey the Polish regulations. So there is a public document on a public website showing how the government companies can use those two technologies. So there's no blocker, I would say, here.
I think of things in terms of physics. That's my background. So what's the physics of something? I believe that there's physics in the commercial world that will drive everyone to the cloud. That if you go to we're competing and you go to the cloud and I don't, you're going to have advantages and I'm going to eventually fail. And so as I see that, as I see you to start gain and as I start to lose, I'm going to say why, and I'm going to be forced to the cloud as well. So I believe in the commercial sector, there's physics that's going to drive everyone to the cloud. And by the cloud, that's Azure Public Cloud or private cloud with Azure Stack. Those physics don't exist for governments, right? If you don't like your government, saying, well, you're going to move to another country? Well, maybe. I mean, you got to really not like it, but like taking a couple hours to get your driver's license versus being able to do it electronically doesn't rate like leaving the country, okay? So then you're just left to individual inspiration. Individual bureaucrats, individual owners of areas will be inspired, will do a lot of great stuff, and we see that. My state, Washington, we have very good electronic government. And boy, I've had not electronic government, I've had electronic government. Electronic government is so much nicer. But it could have gone the other way. And there's nothing that drives the governments to do that because there is no competition. So that's the physics of it.
So what I can add only to this is that there are some studies which are saying that you need to convince 10% of people in an organization to create a momentum for anything you want to do. So whatever it is, like free coffee or whatever, just convince 10% of people and it will happen. So you need to start somewhere and don't expect government to be a driving point for that. There has to be something different. And agreeing with Jeffrey, it's typically money, basically. It's a cost of running it and services. I think we are done with our time here. So what I will ask you is to give the round of applause to our panelists here. And thank you for the half an hour here.
Thank you so much.
You can find Twitter handles of all the panelists behind us. If you want to have a follow-up, just ask the question on the Twitter. They use it, I use it. Thank you.